Well, hi there, welcome back to Devizes Television. I'm William Huntley, but you can call me Bill. And today, my very special guest is a young lady who quite literally lived the dream. So many young people flirt with the idea and never follow it through about, well, I'd really like to be a model. Well, my guest today did. Persephone, I know her as Purdy, is my special guest here today to tell you all about modelling. As I say, the young lady I'm talking to today actually did live the dream. She was a Vogue model. She's been a friend of mine for more years than we probably care to remember. She's stayed in a time warp and I've aged, but there we are, that's another story. As I say, she was a Vogue model and she's joining me today, and she's going to be telling you guys all about her modelling career, and then in the second half telling you possibly how you could actually get involved if that's what you'd like to do. So Purdy, good morning.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me.
Hello.
And right, come on in, how did it all start?
Well, for me it all started with my uncle, he had a hairdresser's,
Right.
and I was a bit geeky and long in the leg and not attractive at all as a teenager. I teased relentlessly about big ears and very, very, very tall. But he saw something in me that he said, can I take your photograph for my hairdressers? And I was bowled over and thrilled and sort of, yes, of course. And I think initially he only did it just to boost my confidence.
Yeah.
And he wanted to play around with photography for his hairdressing salon, and he took my photograph and I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
It was great fun. It was a really great experience, and he used the photograph for his hairdressing salon, which made me feel like a star.
This was just head and shoulders, I guess.
This was just my head, and with a hat on, funnily enough, for hairdressers. But I suppose it gave the image that he wanted.
Okay.
You know, it was a casual, friendly picture. And then a little while after that, he paid for us all to go to a London photographer and have some professional photographs done with this London photographer. And it was an amazing experience with the full makeup, and he did the hair and having, you know, lighting and everything. And it gave me a taste of being a star. I felt like a star.
Like a princess.
Oh, it was amazing. and you know, it wasn't the most incredible shot looking back on it, but when I looked at it, I thought that, you know, that was going to be on every cover of every magazine. I thought it was the best thing ever. Yeah. So it sowed a seed in me, because I was only 15 at the time, but it sowed a seed in me that would be the most amazing job to do. But I never really imagined that it would be something I could do, because I lived in a little town in Wiltshire, and, you know, the bright lights in the big city was a long way away, not just 100 miles away, but it was, you know, it was, you know, a whole existence away. But then when I got to 16 and I wanted to leave home, and I sent my photographs to a modelling agency in London, and now they weren't professional photographs, they weren't the ones that my uncle had taken, they were ones just from in the garden and family photographs, because that's I'd written first of all to this modelling agency, and because in those days you wrote, you didn't text or email or any of those things, you wrote a nice letter, and they asked for family photographs, because looking back on it, you can see from a normal photograph whether the camera likes you, whether you're photographic or not. And I was very lucky. They said, come up for an interview. So all by myself, I went and got on the train up to Paddington and went there, and I was sitting in the waiting room waiting to go in, and there was all these very glamorous ladies in capes and things walking through with books under their arms, and I was thinking, there was me from Bradford-on-Avon, feeling very sort of like in my catalogue clothes, thinking, what on earth am I doing here? And a gentleman walked through, a French gentleman, and he said, hello, who are you? And I said, I'm Persephone, I'm come for an interview. He said, has anybody seen you yet? I said, no. He said, oh, well, wait there. And it turned out that gentleman was Johnny Casablanca, who owned Models One, Elite, and all the elite agencies across the world.
Right.
And he liked me.
Why wouldn't he?
And he'd gone into the agency where he was, just visiting for the day, and said to Josie and April, who ran it, that he wanted me on the books.
Right.
And when I went in, they explained to me that was Johnny Casablanca, and I'm thinking, oh, thank goodness I'd said hello nicely and I'd been polite.
Sure.
And they said as soon as I'd finished school that I could start with the agency. So I left school on the Friday and moved to London on the Sunday.
Fantastic. So, with all due respect, so a little bit of luck played its part as well.
A lot of luck.
A little bit of luck.
A lot of luck. It was one of those, if I can use the word synchronicity, things just sort of fell into place. Something somewhere was saying that this is where I was supposed to go.
Sure. How often do you hear this though, Purdy, that, apparently Bardot, Brigitte Bardot, was spotted by Roger Vadim, and she was not a very attractive young lady. She wasn't ugly, don't get me wrong, but she wasn't the glamour girl that she became 5 years later. But he just saw that something, So if you don't look that glamorous to start off with, a professional person can look at you and say, you've got that certain something. And
I believe Kate Moss was spotted on an aeroplane going on holiday with her parents.
Right.
And the lady who ran Storm Agency just happened to be on the aeroplane at the same time and said, we want you.
Sure.
And they do. The model agencies do have scouts where they go to just normal shopping precincts.
And just look at pretty girls. And let's face it, Britain is full of pretty girls.
But it's not always about being pretty.
No.
It's about having that X factor. That's something different that will make your face or the way you hold yourself stand out from other people. Because there are, as you say, there's a lot of very pretty girls.
Indeed.
But they don't photograph that well.
No.
Or they don't carry themselves that would be translated on a magazine page. So you don't have to be pretty to be a model at all.
It's charisma, isn't it?
Well, I think it's if the camera likes you.
If the camera likes you.
And modelling agencies can spot somebody who's photogenic, I think, rather than somebody who's beautiful, because I've met ladies who are stunningly beautiful, but when they photograph, the camera doesn't pick that up.
No.
They have it in the charisma, they have the personality that will fill a room, but the camera doesn't pick it up.
The camera doesn't.
And then there's a girl who would look, you wouldn't really sort of think anything of her. She's probably got freckles and bushy red hair, and you think, oh, I don't know, could she be a model? And then you look at a photograph of her and you think, wow, that just jumps out at you.
Well, of course,
you never know.
Well, of course, you've seen it, haven't you?
Yeah.
It's the old being photogenic, isn't it?
Yes,
simple as.
Old-fashioned photogenic.
Okay. Right, so a little bit of luck played its part, and obviously being gorgeous, that played its part as well.
Your opinion.
Okay, you've made the first steps, you've moved away from home, because basically, as you say, if you want to pursue a modelling career, lovely as it would be to stay at home in Devizes and what have you, you can't do that.
You can't do it. No, you have to be where the work is.
And the work is in London.
And all the people in the business for England is in London.
Any of the other big cities that you could, say somebody here has got a relative who lives in Birmingham and they'd like to live with family, would Birmingham be a good place?
There are modelling agencies in places like Manchester, very successful ones, and in Liverpool.
Right.
But they're not the ones that will get you the international work in America or Tokyo or Italy, France. They're not the ones that will launch you into the bigger platform. And if you wanted to do a smaller market, then yes, you could. But I think if you want to go the whole way, then you'd need to definitely be in London and be prepared to leave England. Be prepared to go where the work is.
Sure. Yeah, because of course, the world has shrunk, hasn't it?
It's very small, and the most successful girls live in don't live in London. They live in America.
Yeah.
Because that's where the big money is in America.
Sure. Oh right, okay. All right. Well, it started. A little bit of luck.
Yes, a lot of luck.
And various other bits and pieces. How long did your career actually last then, Purdy, doing what you did?
I lasted about 5 years,
Yeah.
and then decided to call it a day.
Yeah.
It's mentally very tiring. You burn out very quickly, and the girls that have the longevity must have a very strong sense of spirit.
Yeah.
It's a very insecure lifestyle in that you are always all over the place.
Sure.
And you may be in one country one day and another country the next day. So maintaining a family or a social or that connection with other people is very difficult.
Yes, because I guess to relationships must suffer because you never know from one week to one day to another where you're actually going to be.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And unless you have a particularly strong relationship or somebody that's maybe in the business
as well, yeah,
who could travel with you or who was very understanding, then it's very difficult. Yeah.
So it's hard work, obviously, because as you say, you have to be available at any given time. This is another reason, of course, why you'd have to be in London, because if you had an agency phone you up and say, we need you on Hampstead Heath at 6 o'clock this evening and it's 3:30, 4 o'clock, you couldn't sort of say, well, I've got to get a train from Pewsey or something like that. There's all the girls and boys up there who are ready to
That's right.
go.
There'll be 500 people in front of you that can be there.
Sure.
You need to be available.
Yeah.
Especially at the beginning when you're building your reputation and you're building your career. You need to be where the work is.
So you have to think about that. If it's something that you want to have a go at, would you be prepared to go and live in London? Do you think you could? Do you think you could manage it? Do you think you'd like to go and live in a big city? My own personal way, I didn't like it. I lived in London, I lived in West Kensington, and I just didn't like London that much. And yet, ironically enough, in my business, I ended up going up there every week, but that's another story. Okay, so pluses and minuses as a business, Purdy, as a career. Come on, give us some pluses.
Right, with my old head on my shoulders now, looking back on it, I see it from a very different perspective. When I was young, it was all about just working, making money, and stuff. Whereas now I look back on it and I think, wow, the opportunities that I had, the places that I visited. Because I was only 16 when I started, it never occurred to me that how lucky I was to be able to travel. I've travelled to so many different places in the world and experienced lots of different cultures and lots of different lands and foods and all that kind of stuff, and somebody else paid for it, paid for me to go there.
So you don't need to have holidays then, because somebody will actually pay you
Absolutely.
to fly to. Come on then, make us all jealous. Tell us some of the places you visited.
Oh, I've visited some amazing places. I remember one particular one. We were in a very gloomy studio in London, and I was working for the Mail on Sunday, and it was winter and it was dreary and awful. And the fashion editor said I could really do with a holiday, and we were also saying, oh, wouldn't that be nice? So she said, right, I'm going to book a fashion shoot. I'm going to book it somewhere really hot and lovely. And she did. She booked myself, my friend Helena, the photographer, and herself, and we all went off to a cruise. Like, it was a holiday basically in the Seychelles. We had 7 shots to do.
Right.
We were there for 2 weeks and we visited 3 islands. And I got paid. It's fantastic. So yes, that I think was the highlight, was the Seychelles for me.
Seychelles, yeah.
Just the most magical place. And of course, if one wanted to go there as a regular visitor, as a tourist, you'd be talking thousands upon thousands. And yes, I was lucky enough to go there.
And so I guess you went to all the places like America.
I went, yes.
Japan, we were talking about.
Went to Japan several times.
Yeah.
Now, as a young person as well, you get very homesick. I mean, I got used to it, but at the beginning I got very homesick.
Yeah.
Not for my home, because I wasn't sorry to leave my home as such, but just for being out of my environment, you know, away from people who spoke my language, or I could read food labels. And
did you feel, sorry, butting in on what you're saying, did you feel when you were going that you were permanently out of your comfort zone?
Yes, because I remember the first time I went to Tokyo, and the agent was late at the airport, and I'm there, and we didn't have mobile phones and things in those days.
Sure.
So I've arrived, I'm 17, I don't know a soul, I've got no one to ring, and I'm in Tokyo. No one speaks my language, I can't read any signs, I don't know where I'm going. And so, yes, you're definitely out of your comfort zone.
So I mean, I can understand people watching this, especially the younger people, because I mean, with all due respect, you reach a certain age, and unless you've already made it, it ain't going to happen. But young people sort of watching this, but it's the thing you have to ask yourself: do you actually like the perimeters of the 9 to 5 work factor, and then you can do whatever you want of an evening without any sort of call on your time or whatever. I mean, so many of us, myself included, are great ones for habit, I guess. If it's Monday, I do this, and if it's Wednesday, I do this sort of thing. So,
and that's what I really missed when I was modelling.
Yeah.
I really missed, like, all my friends would be talking about going to the pub and parties and socialising together.
Sure.
And like when I say my friends, it was people that I knew from school.
Quite.
And I'd meet up with them and they'd say, oh yes, so and so, this and whatever, and I couldn't be part of that very much because I wasn't there.
No.
And you don't have that routine of, you know, going home at night and watching EastEnders or, you know,
whatever.
What normal everyday life is all about. I didn't have any of that.
So I mean, arguably, one could say that you pay a price for what you get, for all the pluses that you
yes,
get.
You do.
There's minuses as well.
But it rewards you.
It
definitely rewards you with a wonderful lifestyle, and you get to, as I say, you get to travel, you get to meet amazing people.
Sure.
And you know, the work itself is great fun.
Well, we were
it's
talking,
great fun.
Probably not having a cup of tea before we started doing this, you know, and she was saying that it's the little girl syndrome, certainly for dressing up.
I got to dress up in amazing clothes
Sure.
every day and perform.
Of course.
You know, I would get to put on the most beautiful designer clothes and, you know, stand in front of a camera and do the things that, you know, most little girls of 5 or 6 do. To be posing in these beautiful dresses, and it's like a fairy tale. Or you get to go and somebody's doing your hair and your makeup, and it's playing dress up. They're putting lipstick on you and doing curly hair, and it's like living a fantasy every day.
Yeah.
And you get paid.
And you get paid for it.
How much better can it be?
Well, that's right. You know, and I can fully understand, you know, because it is a glamour industry. I mean, obviously there's always been modelling, there's always been photographers and what have you, but from the sort of 60s, which was obviously before your time, Purdy, you just give me a very old-fashioned look, but it was. All of a sudden, photographers and models, all manner of different types of people suddenly became the nouveau celebs, if you will. They'd always been there, but then all of a sudden you got to know the photographers. They're by name, you know, David Bailey, Patrick Litchfield, whoever, Howard Marion Davis, of course, and then you got to know about the models, you know, Jean Shrimpton, there was Twiggy, of course, you know. So all of a sudden, these nameless faces that you used to see on all the magazines, all of a sudden became celebrities in their own right, didn't they? You know, and
I think we saw that it was just after sort of when I was in the modelling. I mean, there were a couple of people when I was modelling that were names as such.
Sure.
But just after that became the rise of the supermodels, sort of the end of the 80s, when Naomi and people were coming into it.
Naomi Campbell,
yes. Because they were characters that sort of broke out of the modelling world and became celebrity characters in their own rights, and then the media caught on to models weren't just sort of, brainless people behind a camera who
Clothes
looked
horses.
pretty.
Clothes horses.
No, they were
in fact.
actually, dating pop stars and things, and like when Kate Moss was dating Johnny Depp, and it was all very exciting.
Sure.
Modelling became exciting.
Of course. Yeah, because they say there have always been models, but I mean they in the sort of 50s and so on, they did tend to be the sort of home counties girls who'd gone to ladies'
like
colleges, debutantes.
Yes.
That's right, and that was a sort of a little thing that they did prior to marrying some Hooray Henry and living in the country happily ever after, hopefully. Who knows? That's, I mean, okay, talking about the nuts and bolts of being a model, I mean, it's difficult for us to talk about the fellas because, I mean, obviously as a lady, how is it more difficult for a woman to become a model or a man to become a model?
Personally, I would say it's a lot more difficult for a man to become a model.
Really?
For a couple of reasons. One, because there's less work.
Yeah.
So therefore, there's less opportunity to get work.
Sure.
And also because the demands on a male model are a lot more. I mean, they have to be perfect.
Yeah.
They have to have good bodies and well-toned six-packs and muscles.
Well, so much of it nowadays, Purdy, is of course with body on display. I mean, when you were talking about the 60s and indeed the 70s, so much of it was suited or wearing shirts or sweaters and whatever, But now, of course, it is very much the rock star image, if you will, with the six-pack.
But even if they weren't doing topless or weren't showing it, it would be expected of them. It just would. So I think it would be a lot more difficult to be a male model. And also, it's considered to be quite a feminine business. It's associated with ladies and fashion.
Well, like ballet dancing, I suppose.
Very much so, yes.
Yeah.
So if you're walking into a party and somebody was to say to a gentleman, what do you do for a living? And he was to say, I'm a model. It would still have those kind of effeminate tones to it.
So if you do it and you say, do it in a very manly way.
You have to be very uber masculine.
I'm a model,
I'm a model,
damn
but
it.
look at all these beautiful women I get to work with every day.
Fair comment, yes. I mean, okay, I've always been interested in the media. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing, And so, I've always been, I've never wanted to be a model or anything like that because, let's be honest,
But Bill, you could have been a model. Because
for what though?
But there are character models that are always needed for variety of things, TV advertising or catalogue shoots and stuff, or editorial, where they don't necessarily have to be glamorous and perfect. They have to have character. Yeah, I've done several editorial modelling shoots for magazines where you'd been perfect. We would have liked a
Go on.
A slightly older gentleman with character. There you go.
This face is costing you a lot of money, so.
But no, there are a different.
The lived-in look.
Your words, not mine. But there are different areas of modelling.
Of course. And again, this is where the luck factor comes in. The only male model I can ever remember from the 60s and 70s was a guy called Ted Dawson, and he used to do a lot of catalogue stuff, as I remember. But there was a chap came on, as we all know, the Bond phenomenon kicked on in the early 60s, and there was a male model who, he wasn't a doppelganger for Sean Connery, but he could have been his younger brother, and he was in everything for a good many years because he looked so much like Sean Connery. How lucky is that?
Absolutely.
So the luck factor is always got to be hovering in the background somewhere, isn't it?
Yes.
And okay, we'll stick with the ladies because
you like to.
Yeah, damn right. How strict and vociferous are they with you girls about being a certain size, a certain weight? I'm talking about the anorexia issues that are within the modelling industry.
I don't think you have to be anorexic, but you definitely you need to watch your weight because most of the designers and stuff cater for a size 8, size 8, 10. There are various measurements that it's not because they don't like the larger plus size models. It's just because if you're planning an event, then if 500 girls are all one size and there's 3 that are larger, then they have to go with the majority, and it, the clothes, it's an old-fashioned thing, but the clothes tend to hang better when it goes from the shoulders down, and there's not curves and lumps. And,
sure.
I mean, even to the point of it was frowned on if you had big boobs.
Yeah. So the androgyny.
They like you to be very flat-chested because it ruins the line of the jackets. And
so
things.
it was the androgyny factor then.
Yes, my androgyny.
Persephone, androgyny. I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay. Well, so you say anorexia. Obviously, is unknown.
Nobody likes anybody to be ill, and nobody wants anybody to be unhealthy.
Of course not.
And some girls are naturally very slim.
Yeah.
I mean, I eat like a horse, and always have done.
I was going to say, did you have to watch what you ate when you were modelling?
No, because I'm naturally quite a sort of nervy person, I suppose. And
so your metabolism would have burnt it off.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And there, I would say with models as well, they are moving around the whole time.
Sure.
And they have long days, and they're mentally working a lot of the time. So you do burn a lot of calories, but you can't afford, if you want to work, you can't afford for your weight to fluctuate very much.
No, of course not. Yeah. Advice to anybody that is still, having watched this, thinks, I'd really like to have a go for it. What is the prerequisite? Okay, you've got a chance, you're in with a chance to being a model. What do you recommend somebody does to keep the ball rolling and not cause any problems?
Not cause any problems? Not sure. I would say if anybody's sort of sat there thinking, I wouldn't mind, I'd like to give it a go, do it. Just try. You may not. It may not come to anything, but it may. So the only way you will ever find out is if you give it a go.
Sure.
And that you're never going to find out if you just sit in Devizes.
No, quite. So it's hard work, of course.
It is hard work, yes.
We all hear the glamour stories where the guy walks up to this pretty little girl in a shopping mall and said, "Would you like to be a model?"
Don't do that.
No.
Don't do that. I wouldn't trust that for a second. No.
But I mean, the glamour stories, as I say, where somebody happens to see or hear a young guy singing in a pub and saying, "Right," and the following week he's number one. It happens, but it's a billion to one.
Very rarely. Behind every pop star or model or anything is, years of hard work.
Years of hard work.
Yeah.
So that's the codicil. You've got to be prepared to work, maybe sacrifice social life to a fair degree.
The thing is, it's not what you want in that you want to be a model. It's how badly you want it. Because there's always somebody who will want it more than you do.
Okay, Purdy. Well, let's have a look at some of the photographs in your portfolio here. This is your lovely self.
Yes, back in the day.
Back in the day. And the magazine is called Look Now. Was it a very famous magazine? It means...
In the day it was, yes. It was a sort of teenage young lady magazine.
Oh, right, okay.
A bit like a glamour magazine today,
sure.
where they sort of covered fashion and beauty and stuff for the younger lady.
I see, and also inside information, I guess, about the pop stars and movie stars and what have you of the day, or?
I'm not sure, really. I suppose
when a sun-soaked, action-packed holiday.
Well, there you go. Who wouldn't want that?
And this is what you actually used to take round to all the various agencies, and they're called Z cards.
They are. What would happen was I'd trundle along to an appointment, a go-see. We used to call them go-sees. And I'd go and see, say, the editor of the magazine, and I'd hand them my book,
right.
And then they'd flick through the pictures and see how I photographed, see how photogenic I am,
right.
And what I look like in a photograph.
Okay.
And then at the end of the appointment or the interview, which would only last, say, sort of 5 or 10 minutes, I'd hand them a Z card, and this would be then it's like a business card, like my calling card.
Cool.
And they put it into a stack with the other 500 they've already seen.
Yeah.
But it would be their reminder of who I was,
right.
And hopefully remind them of the person that was in the room.
Okay.
And then they'd look through, but they'd also put them in these business cards into their files.
Right.
And then maybe in a month's time or 6 months' time, when they're looking for a tall brunette, they'd go through their files and think, I need a tall brunette, she'll do. Because maybe on the day that I go there, they're looking for a petite blonde.
Sure.
So I wouldn't have been right for that job, but I may be right for a job for them in the future.
Yeah. So I mean, reiterating, you've got to get used to rejection in so many.
All day, every day. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it's not personal.
No, of course not.
Because they're looking for a certain type of a look.
Yeah.
They have an image in their head of what they want for their particular job that day.
Sure.
So at the beginning, obviously, it feels like it's personal because I'm the person stood there and they're saying, "No, you're not what we're looking for," and they can be quite brutal sometimes.
I can imagine.
Oh no, not her.
Yeah.
And like, oh. But it's not. It's not personal at all. It's just a business.
And okay, these business cards, again, with the photographs on, are they expensive to?
Yes. Yes, well, they were when I was doing
Sure.
it. It was probably the biggest outlay that you would have. Would be your Z cards, definitely, because they have to be of a certain quality. The printing has to be good and clear,
Sure.
and they have to be a good portrayal of who you are.
Of course.
Because that's all the person who's going to remember you by.
Quite. Yes, because I mean, you say they see you literally for 5 minutes.
That's right.
Okay, come on, let's have another look through this portfolio
let's have a little look at
and
some
of the photographs.
Right, as you can see, in this one I'm dark, in that one I'm slightly blonder.
Right.
And my look used to change quite a lot because, trends change and I had to be quite adaptable and versatile.
Yeah, because this
was quite an interesting one. This was a photographer called Bill Ling, and the man who did my hair on this had just started helping John Frieda, who was the hairdresser.
Married Lulu.
He did, yes. She used to turn up on set sometimes. But anyway, and his name, he'd only just started doing session work, we called it, when the hairdresser comes to the studio and does it. And he went on to be quite famous, and you might have heard of Nicky Clark.
Nicky Clark, indeed.
Nicky Clark did my hair on this photograph,
right,
and it was his first ever cover as well.
Right,
and that was my first ever cover I did.
So you were there when it all started. Yes. I like that photograph. That's a nice one.
That was quite a stunning one, is it? Yes, Miss London. That was the 80s makeup. What were we thinking?
Toy Wilcox-ish, isn't it? Yeah.
This is quite an interesting one.
Yeah.
This is Options magazine, and that was their first ever magazine. This was the launch. This was their first ever edition. I did that with Clive Arrowsmith, who used to be a photographer in the 60s. And then he progressed, and he only used to do very nice beauty work by the time I'd started modelling. So I was very lucky to work with him.
Sure. And any particular, I mean, that is, you say, that's a super. They're all good, but I mean, there's certain ones that.
These ones, interspersed in the portfolio, you have to show that you have a body.
Of course.
They like body shots, not particularly sort of underweary ones, but showing that. You could do swimwear if you needed to.
Of course, yeah.
So that's the reason that they're poked in there.
Any particular?
Cosmopolitan, always a winner. I used to love Cosmopolitan. They always used to do slightly sort of risque type shots. You see, I'm looking a little bit naughty in that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, who's it? Robert Redford with you, is it?
Well, I wish it was. No, it wasn't, but he'll do.
Some nameless gentleman model.
I seem to remember he was a builder.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So, but it's very hard to be a male model, so he was a builder and would do the modelling part-time.
Well, I guess, as you say, it's a glamour business, isn't it? And I suppose for every one job, there's 1,000 people want it.
There are, and there's very few male jobs to do, apart from being my background.
Of course, yes, being the wallpaper.
It's my accessory.
Being the wallpaper to your Titian painting. You're a model, you're working, you're on an agency now. What is the sort of normal itinerary for a working model?
Okay, right. Well, to go back to the very beginning, when you sort of first moved to London, what you have to compile is a portfolio.
Right.
Because like your portfolio here,
okay,
and it's a book of photographs of you that you then take around to magazines and photographers and clients to show them how you photograph.
Sure.
And they have a little look through your book. That's called your go-see. You go and see the people, and then they look through your book, and then you leave them your card.
This is
your modelling card.
This is Purdy's modelling card. You've got that side there, and that side there.
And this would remind the client after you've left who you were.
Sure.
So what would happen is you'd ring your agent in the evening, and they would say, right, I've got some go-sees for you tomorrow, and then you would ring them during the day as well, the following day, to see if anything had been added to that go-see list.
Okay.
And you may get 11 go-sees in a day, in different places in London, and you'd have to go from one to the other, to the other, to the other. Turn up, quick refresh, say, hello, I'm Persephone, this is from Models One, this is my book. They'd look through it, and you'd say, make a little bit of conversation with them, be friendly, be nice, so that they would think that you might be somebody they'd like to work with.
Quite.
And then you'd beetle off to the next one.
Right.
And you might do that for weeks and not get a job.
Right.
You have to be prepared that it's not the fact that you're not good enough, and it's not the fact that you're not going to be a model. It's just that at that particular moment you're not what they're looking for.
Quite.
And you may go back to the same magazine 3 or 4 times until one time on that day at that time they think, she's the girl I need for that editorial.
Right.
And then they'll book you.
So you've also got to have, dare I say it, a bit of a thick skin to actually deal with rejection.
Yes, and modelling will teach you that tenfold, realising that it's not personal to you.
No.
It's because at the beginning you do take it very personally, and why wouldn't you? Because you're the person who stood there saying, "Please book me," and they don't. So, but then you realise it's not. It's a business, and it's not personal to you particularly. It's just being in the right place at the right time again.
With the right look.
With the right look. But by leaving these cards and by continually going back to these people until they think, oh God, here she is again, then they get to know you see. And this is where the models who've been in the business for quite a while, the supermodels as such, they don't need to go on go-sees and stuff because people know who they are, they know their face, they know if it'll work for their campaign or their editorial. But at the beginning, you need to build that, and you need to go round to everybody on foot. Or see, when you first start out, you can't use the taxis because you won't have any money.
No, quite. So you've got nowhere to
do everything, either walking or by tube or bus, or as quickly as possible and as cheaply as possible.
Of course, because you say, I mean, how many weeks would you go without actually having any work?
It could be months.
And
generally, when you've done a job, you won't be paid then anyway. It takes 3 or 4 months for the payment to come through your agency. So you're always working.
So
way behind.
Arguably, if you're going to move to London, then you've got to have some backup money as well, haven't you?
Well, usually your agency will look after you.
Will they? Oh,
well, they looked after me anyway. I found Models One that I was with was very good. And I think if you've got girls that are very young that are coming into London, the big agencies will make sure that they're like their chaperone. They do, because they have a moral, if nothing else, responsibility for making sure that the girls are safe
and looked after.
Yeah.
I mean, as an industry, as far as, Models One was obviously your agency, but there's so many famous agencies, Storm, Ugly, and what have you, which is the one I was going for, just you'd like that. But they are that moralistic, that they look after their people.
Well, you're their commodity, so they really need you.
So they need you to be
because
okay.
The more you work, the more money that they will make.
Of course. It all comes back to money,
doesn't it? And a model's not going to work, and a girl that's not working is no good for them on their books. You need to be quite cynical about it.
Well, of course, yeah. Well, so, as you say, it's a business, isn't it?
It is a business at the end of the day.
I mean, in so many businesses, the ethos is, if it don't pay, it don't stay. And
very simple.
And that works through the modelling.
Sometimes, if you're not working, but the agency can see that you have the potential and you have the backbone to, you're really trying and you're prepared to give it that commitment, then they will, stick with you.
Sure.
Because maybe it's just not your time. There have been girls that have, stuck at it in London or tried various different countries and built up a good portfolio, and then all of a sudden they will take off.
Yeah.
And it's that tenacity that keeps you going.
So it takes you years to become an overnight success.
Yeah.
I've got all these lisms I throw in all the time. Well, okay, Bertie, we've nearly finished. One more thing. Okay, your modelling career comes and you decide, I've had enough of this now. Do lots of models, both male and female, they obviously move on to other things. the training and the things that they've done, does it open up more media work, would you say, like television or whatever?
Because you get to meet in the business, can I use that?
Yeah, please do.
In the business, you get to meet people from all sorts of different areas,
Sure.
you know, from the pop world, from television, from theatre, all the sort of entertainment
Movers
side.
and shakers.
All those people. So yes, you do network with a lot of different walks of life.
Sure.
So it can move on to other things.
Right.
I mean, there have been models that have gone on to be pop stars or actresses, or you may just meet someone who is a celebrity in their own right and become, you know,
Their partner. Sure.
and leave the modelling and just become their wife.
Yeah.
Or you may, you know, just go back to being a normal person.
A normal person.
Which is what I wanted to do. I wanted to go back and
You wanted that degree of normality.
I wanted to go back and just be living in the country.
Sure, and being a mum, and
yes, being a mother,
and all the good things which go with that. And
that was the plan, anyway.
That was the plan. Yeah, many a slip, tricks, cup and death and what I mean.
I got there in the end.
Yeah, because I was taken actually, and then given back. But that's another story. No, what I was going to say, anything. To wind up the interview, Pretty, thanks so much for coming into the studio today. I mean, as always, it's lovely chatting to you. I mean, we've been friends for many years.
Yes.
You know, I mean, she was a child. She was a child, and I was an idiot. But anything that you would say to somebody, both male, female, or specific, to steer clear of.
Oh gosh, yes. Now,
you know,
the first thing that jumps into my head is people who will say to you, if you're going to be a model, you'll need a portfolio.
Right.
Give me £100 and I'll create one for you.
Right.
You know, no, don't do that.
No.
There are always good photographers who will take test shots for you for nothing.
Sure.
You know, because they would like good shots, and your agency will steer you towards people like that. And to actually get into a modelling agency, you don't need professional photographs. All you need is some nice photographs of yourself,
Right.
because they will be able to see from that whether you're photographic or not, whether you're photogenic or not.
Photogenic, right, yeah.
The people who try and sort of, or for example would say, I'll take your portfolio for nothing, but you need to do it in your underwear. Or something like that. You know, don't do any of those things. It's not necessary, and it won't stand you in good stead either.
No, because it can come back to bite you, can't it?
It certainly can, yeah. So don't do any of those things, and be wary of the man in the shopping mall who comes up to you as well.
Would you like to be a model?
Or the market.
Yeah. Yeah, we won't go on the markets. Okay, yeah, I mean, that does make sense, because prior to talking to you about that, I would have thought you had to go and pay to have your photograph done professionally to present to the agencies, but you say no.
I would say no. It's a very nice thing to do, to have your photograph taken professionally, and I've actually paid to have my photograph taken professionally because it's something that I want to do. But in this instance, to get into a modelling agency, it's not something you need to do. Or also, not wanting to seem harsh, unless they're London photographers and they've got experience in editorial and catalogue and stuff, the kind of photographs that they're going to take aren't going to be the ones that the modelling agency will want to see.
Yeah.
They won't use the right kind of lighting or the right kind of mood, and you'll cheapen yourself by doing it.
Sure.
You'll show yourself in not a good light.
And, okay, I mean, obviously, can't reiterate enough, especially for the girls, steer clear of the seedy side of the business.
Keep your clothes on.
Yeah, keep your clothes on. Keep your clothes on, as simple as, you know, because, I mean, otherwise, when you make it, when you become famous, those photos will come back to haunt you a million times over, and you'll think to yourself, oh, why did I do that, you know? So, I mean, I'm not moralising or anything like that. I'm just thinking there's guys out there watching this, you know, male, female, and who knows, this might just be the catalyst they need to move on to start and getting this going. In 5 years' time, we could be sort of saying, well, that programme we did for Devizes television motivated Jack, blah, 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 or Trudy so-and-so.
It's a wonderful lifestyle, and, you know, if you were in any way inclined to do something like that, I would say give it a go, because you never know, you know, and it's not about being the prettiest girl in the school, and I am living proof of that, because I certainly definitely wasn't. But
I can't believe that for 1 minute, but anyway, go on.
Oh gosh, if only I'd brought a photograph of what I looked like at school. But anyway, I wasn't, and none of the boys ever found me attractive at school. I was like, a joke. But I wanted to get away from the life that I had, so I tried, and it worked out very well.
And it worked out for you.
It
Fantastic.
did. So I would say to anybody, if you're thinking about going in that way, go and do it. The lifestyle, the opportunities and the things that you'll see, you'll thank yourself for.
Birdie, I found it fascinating. I really, really have. Thank you so much for coming in today. Really hope you've enjoyed this as a programme and it's given you some ideas, even if it's just to sit back there and enjoy it. But it may be for younger people, it's given you some ideas of things that you'd like to do. Purdy, Persephone, thank you so much for coming in today. I'm Bill Huntley. This has been a White Horse production for Devizes Television. Until the next time, bye-bye for now.